62% of Americans say they have political views they're afraid to share, sometimes called election stress disorder. How should bosses deal with political talk in the workplace? We'll talk about all of this with our guest this morning, Joel Patterson, a workplace culture expert and head of the Vested Group. Joel, good morning.
Morning, Joel.
Good morning, Art and Jennifer. How y'all doing?
It's all good. So, election stress disorder, defined as heightened stress people may experience in relation to elections. You think that's a real thing?
You know, I mean, the stress is real. I don't know if it's a disorder or not. I guess that remains to be seen. But I think just given where the political discourse is these days and the me versus them that seems to tinge every single conversation that you have, I don't think there's any doubt that it creates extra stress in the workplace. And it's something that managers and owners really need to take a look at and decide whether or not they want to allow those conversations to really take place. I mean, you don't want to legislate whether or not people can talk about it, but whether or not they're wearing campaign shirts as an example on a Zoom call. I mean, there's things like that I think that you can put some policies in place to avoid.
And are there managers who are doing that, and how has it worked out?
Yeah, there are. So far, I think it's working out fine. I think it really has a lot to do with the individual organization. All of this comes back to the values of the organization and what they stand for and whether or not people really follow them. And if they do, then you can rely on that to kind of dictate what they can and can't wear. And hopefully, you don't even have to, right? People will know that that's a pretty lightning rod type of conversation, and hopefully they'll just avoid that. I can tell you from my experience, we don't have a policy on it, but over the last couple of weeks, I've had more than one person make a comment about the stress that it creates and don't really want to talk about it at work. I mean, they don't even want to talk about it with their spouses, much less at work. And so if it does become an issue, like if I saw somebody show up on a call that had a Biden shirt on or a Trump shirt, I'd probably, even though I don't want to, I'd probably ask them not to wear that next time, simply because there's a lot of people on the call and I can't really, I know even if somebody won't say something, there's bound to be somebody on that call that is upset by it, and there's really no point. I mean, save that stuff for in the evening time.
Well, and to take it a step further, related to Zoom calls, you can have stuff in the background that could have political overtones.
Yeah, no doubt about it, and it does happen. You don't really want to legislate everything that's going on. We've kind of built this culture of compliance in businesses over the last few years where you have to have a rule and a policy for absolutely everything that can take place. And that's just not possible, and I think we're seeing that has kind of failed in a lot of ways. And so as long as you, again, have your core values defined and you actually live by them, you make hiring and firing decisions based on those core values, you're going to be able to just avoid that stuff quite a bit before it even happens. But there's bound to be something that's going to come up. It could even be a client or something. We're a technology services firm, so we're constantly on Zoom calls with our clients, and somebody's going to have something in the background that might start a conversation. And again, I just encourage our people to avoid that and kind of take the higher road there. One thing, there was a survey that came out earlier this week that I'll point out that really makes this even more important. It said that 44% of people under 30 actually believe that it's a fireable offense if an executive in their company donates to the Trump campaign. And no matter what you agree on politics, if we're starting to head down that slippery slope of being able to hire or fire people based on who they support as a candidate, I mean, I think that just creates a whole other situation that we're not really prepared to deal with right now.
Is that legal?
That's a great question. I can't imagine that it is, and I'm sure in the survey that's not something. I mean, that to me becomes a discrimination and a bullying kind of situation. And if we can't discriminate for race and gender and religion, which we shouldn't, I don't understand how you could for your political views, but it doesn't stop people from believing that should happen.
Yeah,
it's a little crazy.
Most of what we're talking about this morning seems to fall under the umbrella of getting employees to put down their differences for the success of the company. And that seems like in 2020, at least, to be a pretty big challenge.
Yeah, they always say things come in threes. And lately with COVID, with social justice, and with the election, I mean, if you if you don't have a solid culture, and if you haven't built into your culture the things that really allow it to survive these kind of times, you absolutely know it. I mean, this is not the time for the weak-hearted to try to be out hiring and holding people together. I mean, you've really got to be able to find ways to keep your people engaged and provide purpose and keep them from being bored. Another thing is, it's the hot topic lately has been working from home, right? And Google just came out today and said that we've got another year that they can all work from home, and that was really to support their families that have children. But the issue, from my perspective, is that I think we're kind of through that honeymoon period of the Zoom and work from home situation. That obviously things are going to change, and there's going to be a subset of time that's spent at home. But when we first started this, everybody was kind of excited. It was new. Everybody was doing it, so you weren't unique. You could share stories about it. But now I'm hearing more and more people say, I want to visit with people. I want to see what they look like in person, and I want to be able to just build that rapport and water cooler talk and all those things you get used to. I think people are really missing that now, and that's part of what helps you avoid some of those conversations that might happen that might get a little bit fiery.
That's true. That's true, Joel, because we all miss seeing people. You talked earlier about how over the past few years, companies had built a culture of compliance. Do you know why they moved in that direction? And if I heard you correctly, you're saying we should get away from that now, or you're advising companies to get away from that?
Yeah, it's a lot of HR stuff. So you could even go back to, it's a silly example, but you go back to The Office and the sexual harassment training episode, or diversity training, that's what it was. Mm-hmm. And then everything has to have a rule. So every situation has to be accounted for. Like, you've got a standard operating procedure for how people interact throughout the day. And it's not that some of that stuff isn't valuable. The issue is what happens when there's an event that occurs that is not one of your standard procedures. How are people, if they are told what they're allowed to do in every situation, what do they do when they encounter something that's not documented? Mm. And that's where it goes back to, you've really got to be looking at the values that you incorporate in your organization. And core values, unfortunately, over the years have gotten a little bit of an eye roll from people, but they actually work, and it is very important. And, we're a company that we're proud of the fact that we're on the best places to work lists every year, and we take that very seriously. And the reason for that is because we live and breathe our core values. We talk about them every day, and it allows people to know where they stand, and be able to have conversations that are productive. We all have differences, and we celebrate our differences because that's what allows business to really grow and prosper. And so if you treat people like adults and allow them to just lean on those principles, then you're going to be okay, as opposed to being in a situation where you feel like you've got to tell everybody every single thing that they have to do throughout the day.
Right. So core values would be like a mission statement, and if everybody knows it and they're working for that company, they would be more likely to adhere to rules that would support that. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So I'll give you an example. So we don't use mission statement because that's another thing that people oftentimes roll their eyes at these days. So we call it our purpose. And our purpose at my company is the best job ever. And so we paint this picture where we tell our people what we want is for someday for you to sit down with your grandkids, and your grandkids say, hey, tell me about your best job that you ever had. And you tell them about this place. And so, yeah, we love our work and we're challenged by our work. But what we really focus on is making sure that our people want to come in every single day. They're valued. They're challenged. And they really respect and admire the people that they work with. And we've been pretty successful at doing that.
So where did that idea come from for you? Because obviously you feel very strong about it, and it sounds like you've got a blueprint for achieving what you just subscribed. But where did that come from?
Some of it's just like every entrepreneur that's out there, I've had failures. So I had another company that I didn't follow a lot of that stuff, and I learned from it. And I learned when that company wasn't doing well, you could tell that a lot of that was because of the way we handled the culture. We had good culture when things were good. When things weren't bad, it wasn't that way. And so really what we've done is when I started this business, I wanted to make it about the people and not about the job. Because I feel like, happy people are going to create happy clients, and that's worked out really well for us. But at the end of the day, I just want to work somewhere that I would want to work at. And so I really try to take that approach to it. Would I find this place the best place that I could ever work? And as long as I continue to feel that on a day-to-day basis, then it's working for me. There's other elements of that, and how you report, and how you greet people, and how you actually make sure that they are engaged with their day-to-day tasks. And there's a blueprint for it, and it's pretty clear. It's pretty easy, but it's not simple, if you know what I mean. You've got to be willing to really invest the time and the energy, and it takes work. And as long as you're willing to invest that time and energy, anybody can have a successful culture that will ultimately drive really good business results.
Joel, one of our texters just wrote, "Are they hiring?"
I love hearing that. I mean, I want to hear that as much as I possibly can.
And what's the name of your company?
That has a lot.
What's the name of your company again? What's the name of your company again?
We're called the Vested Group, and we're a professional services firm that works with a business management system called NetSuite, and we're based in Dallas, and we're in an industry that has high turnover typically. So if you've heard of like Accenture and Ernst & Young and those other what are called Big Four accounting firms, they don't have attrition of 15 to 20% a year, and that's just part of their process. Ours is around 2 or 3%, and we take that seriously, and that ultimately creates our happy clients.
Well, Joel, we've enjoyed the conversation.
Yes.
I hope if we invite you on again, we'd love to have you on again, because this was a great conversation. I think you said a lot of things that I think resonated with people who are employed, who are listening. Everybody wants to be valued and paid attention to, and have bosses that put people first. And, some businesses talk the talk, but they don't necessarily walk the walk when it comes to that. But what a great conversation. So we appreciate your time this morning.
Thanks, Joel.
Thank you very much. Look forward to next time.
Very
Take
good.
care.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Bye-bye.